And we're back with another episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale. I'm Don Henninger. Joining me, as always, is my podcast partner and community champion, Kevin Maxwell.
Hopefully.
Always. Champion in my mind, that's for sure.
Speaking of champions.
Yeah, exactly. Champion all the way. Kevin, this is the second in our 2-episode focus on the campaign for Scottsdale's mayor. And this week we get to meet with Lisa Borowsky, who's challenging the incumbent mayor, David Ortega, who was on our show last week. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great to see you guys always and visit with you. Yeah.
It's always good to see you.
It really is.
It's great to catch up with you during this hectic campaign season that you're in.
It has been hectic, but it's good.
Well, we're going to see how things work pretty soon because Election Day is nearing. But thanks for being with us. Thanks for your willingness to run for mayor. That in itself, and as far as I'm concerned, is a valuable public service to Scottsdale. And we appreciate it. And people don't say thank you about that for enough. Just for running.
That's nice. I appreciate it.
It's hard work. Kevin, you know that for sure.
Well, and thank you for everything you've done in the past. I mean, it's not like that's the only thing she's ever done for the community up until now.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that.
She has a big resume already. So thank you for everything you've done up to this date.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that.
Perfect.
You're a lifelong resident of Scottsdale, which is really cool. Attended Scottsdale Public Schools. You graduated from ASU.
Yes.
And then you got your law degree at St. John's School of Law in New York City. And you've had a career in commercial litigation.
Correct.
Which is awesome. And to your point, Kevin, she served on the Scottsdale City Council from 2008 to 2012. And you've been on numerous boards since then, including Experience Scottsdale's Board of Directors, the city's Audit Committee, the Water Subcommittee, and the Westworld Subcommittee, and we could go on and on. Okay. But we won't. We want to get into the issues.
Don't forget the Charros.
I was going to say,
Scottsdale Charros. I'm on the foundation board 6th year. I love it. I always wanted to be a Charro.
Yeah.
So
well, you are, for sure. At least you're certainly helping the organization. That's for darn sure. So, Lisa, we're going to get into the same issues that we discussed last week with Mayor Ortega. So you all can sign off on the same stuff.
Great.
So we'll start with one of our favorite topics, which is growth and development. Everybody loves to talk about this, right? It seems like it's on everybody's mind all the time in Scottsdale these days. Scottsdale is known for its unique character and its charm. So how would you balance the city's character with the need for future growth and development?
So I think that you hit the nail on the head. I am not anti-development. I'm very much in favor and will encourage and frankly demand or expect high quality development. And that doesn't necessarily mean more expensive because I'm sensitive to the, people that are trying to bring something forward. You don't want to layer on unnecessary costs just for the sake of doing so. So I think when I am judging development projects that come before my watch as mayor, the question will be, and I'll define a little bit more high quality, does it add to the quality of life, the character of our city, and respect our city's rich heritage, and actually bring it forward in a way that benefits us all and benefits the property owner? So it's a balancing act.
Always is. Talk about how affordable housing plays into that too.
So affordable housing, we get this question a lot, it's, being interviewed and in debates. That's such a subjective term, right? So affordable housing to me means something different to, the person walking down the street or someone, that is doing public safety work or police officer or fireman. Not that it means that much more to me, but it's the point I'm making very, very subjective. So as a baseline, I do not believe that government should, I'm very much a proponent of property rights, individual property rights. I don't believe the government or the city should be mandating a price point for developers or for property owners that are offering products for sale. So affordable housing, and also in Scottsdale, we have the benefit of being in a city surrounded by many different communities, right? And there are many different ranges of home prices and very close by. I mean, literally at some points in our city, a 5 or 10 minute drive or even a 1 minute drive, over into Tempe. So I don't think that's the business of the mayor or the council in Scottsdale, is to get involved in the pricing of housing. Also, I'm just going to add this. The last we looked, I had a realtor do a search on this, and I think there were like 350 properties under the $400,000. So it's kind of just a buzz, the affordable housing crisis. And I feel homes are way more expensive, and cyclical nature of markets, especially in Scottsdale and the Valley, I think we're going to see, a leveling out.
Great. 490. Let's talk about 490 for a little bit. A little bit of sales tax for preserves and parks. I think you're on the record as being against this. How did you arrive at that?
So it's interesting. I would rather be on the record that I'm a no vote.
Okay.
For me, right? This is what's great about democracy. I can give my opinion and say my piece. And as has already occurred, the voters will get the opportunity. It can go to the ballot like it's supposed to. It's a tax increase. And I know that rubs the proponents the wrong way. But it's a democratic process, and the voters will get to decide. And I'm all for that idea. Why am I voting no? A couple of reasons. And I'll just add in my concerns about the process. So for almost a year, the campaign for yes on both the initiatives, the proposals, 490 and 491, and sticking to 490, the campaign involved the advocacy that this was a tax decrease. Mm-hmm. And while your taxes are going to go down for instantaneously by 0.15%, and immediately jump back up if 490 passes 0.15%, then it is, I think, I hope I'm getting those. It might be a 0.2%. Do you recall?
I thought it's 0.15.
0.15.
It's 0.15 on both sides. Yeah. Okay, so it's not a tax decrease, or the tax stays the same.
It's kind of a wash.
Yeah, it's a wash. So it was advertised as a decrease, and that was false. It's actually an increase in the tax. And so I had a big problem with that, as did the Court of Appeals.
Right.
They were, a couple of citizens sued
Goldwater Institute,
the city, and the Goldwater Institute was the advocacy group that took the case, but it was a core group of concerned citizens that language was misleading and objectively false, which is the statutory requirement. And in fact, the Court of Appeals found in favor of those plaintiffs and ruled against the city and found it was objectively false. Well, that's total misrepresentation to the voters. And, it's been a campaign for a year. And so people need to know what they're voting on. We need transparency. We need to be crystal clear about what the tax is and what it is not. Right. So I'm against it for those reasons that I've just said, that reason I should say. The second reason I'm against it is it's confirmed by the city treasurer in response to a question from a council member, and it was copied to all council members. I have a copy of it as well. I wasn't copied, and the city treasurer confirmed that all the uses that the 490 is purportedly addressing as unfunded are currently funded. And there's no explanation for why they would suddenly not be funded. So that's a problem for me. Thirdly, there's so much overspending going on, like at a minimum, $115 million over budget 2019 bond projects. And that was March 2023's number, I believe. And it's far greater than that now. Article in the paper yesterday, I'm sure you saw the Scottsdale Road roundabout project. That's 300% over budget. So there's a lot of misuse of funds going on, and I'm sure we're going to turn to homelessness potentially. But the mayor consistently brags that he's earmarked $10 million for homeless shelter just south of Old Town. So I don't think that's the right use of our taxpayer dollars or the right location. I do know that I agree homelessness is a big issue, which I'm sympathetic to, but it's a regional problem that warrants a regional solution. So all of those reasons combined, I think giving this administration more money to play with is not a good idea.
I see.
Complicated. That's the problem. But let's talk some more about money. And let's talk about the economy.
Okay.
And what do you think about, when you think about your vision for the city's economic future? So how do you plan to attract businesses and jobs to the city while maintaining still that cultural and residential feel as well? And how would you support small businesses?
So when I was on council 2008 to 2012, that was a big issue for me. And the way that, in my opinion, the city supports small businesses is make the city open for business, right? A less regulatory scheme that causes, friction getting through. The red tape, cut the red tape, simply said. And not raising taxes on businesses is another good way to do it, right? Raising the sales tax is not helpful to small businesses. I also think that the city should and will, on my watch, do a lot more to improve Old Town and downtown Scottsdale. It's been really ignored in terms of updates, and my opponent campaigned on promises that he would do so much for Old Town, and really nothing has happened. And I think that's a real missed opportunity. We really need to focus down there. So less regulation, continue with as low of taxes as we can possibly set the stage to be successful for them. And I think that's a winning recipe.
Okay.
Great. So let's talk about community engagement for a minute and inclusivity. How would you increase the transparency and encourage greater community participation in the city decision-making process?
I have a great solution for that, and I'm copying it from the state legislature. You can submit by email that you're going to speak at the state legislature, and so if they can do it, we can do it. Right. So I think this is just a wonderful use of technology to advance more openness, more resident involvement, which I think people feel alienated from the city process. A lot of times, that's what leads to kind of the aggravation and distrust and, the more vitriolic results. So I think this would go a long way to diffusing that, inviting people to City Hall however they can get there. Not all of us can get to city council meetings to watch, or boards and commissions, or whatever the case might be. Like the 490 hearing to modify the language was at 2:00 in the afternoon on, I think it was like a Wednesday or a Thursday. I couldn't drop everything and get there, because I had other things.
So how's it work at the state legislature level? Do they email their comments in and then they're read into the record, or are they reserved?
Appear virtually on and make your, you can email your comments and they can be read, or email exactly.
Right, for public
comment.
And
you can testify virtually. So there's a way to do it.
Right.
We all know there's a way to do it. I go to court when I was going to court virtually.
Yeah.
Almost all the hearings were virtual.
We did during COVID at the city, where you could testify at the city from home and on a Zoom kind of deal.
So they have the capacity.
So the technology's there.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I think that's a great first, step. Look at that. And then just having a lot of communication. I know they have a great communications department, but under the current administration, again, a lot of people go to City Hall and they're told to sit down and you're off the agenda. You're not talking about what we want to talk about.
Right.
And they're there to say their piece. And I just think we need a higher level of respect. And also getting citizens, involved in the process really makes them a lot more trusting and feel valued. So there's a way to diffuse all that.
Yeah. Here's another favorite topic, transportation.
Okay.
So how do you plan to address the city's growing traffic congestion and improve public transportation options for residents, maybe even for visitors? And what investments do you think are really needed for Scottsdale's infrastructure?
So traffic is definitely a problem. I think the first and foremost goal is don't make it worse, right? Hippocratic oath.
Yeah.
Stop making it worse.
Right.
Stop
Quit digging.
Pouring all those high-rise apartment projects onto Scottsdale Road. It's going to be quite intense there for traffic. And then you go up to Mayo and Scottsdale Road, and that's the most chaotic corner we've got going. And with Optima, I love the Optima developers. They're family friends, and I really, really think they do amazing work. That's a lot of intensity right there. And then a roundabout between them and the Lexus dealer. I got involved in that conversation, and with any luck, they'll be saved from the roundabout, because that doesn't make sense to go out. Some things are not making sense to me. So what would I do? I don't love roundabouts. And, someone pointed out to me, they're good in certain locations. I'll agree with that. I don't think they're great in major commercial areas where there's so much going on at all four corners are super busy and super dense. I think that's a really bad idea. I also don't think they're good at locations like they're scheduled for, Dynamite and Scottsdale Road. You know what can't navigate roundabouts well? Car haulers and horse trailers.
There's a lot of those up there.
There's a ton of those, and it's scary. I mean, when I was on council, we first started seeing roundabouts come before the council, and I understand. I was shown evidence that they reduce fatalities in traffic accidents. They don't reduce traffic accidents, however, and that can be an entire fallout in and of itself. Think of a 16-horse trailer. I mean, God forbid. I think it's just messy. But what would I do to improve? When I was on council, I advanced the hospitality trolley through my work with the hoteliers and Experience Scottsdale, CVB at the time. So I'm all about that, making it easier to traverse the city. But with Uber, Lyft, Waymo, I think we're in good shape with that. I heard a stat a couple of days ago. They have found that only 25 people actually use the bus in Scottsdale on a regular basis.
Oh, wow.
So think about the cost. And I know that's a regional transportation and it's not going anywhere anytime soon, but I think we're doing okay. I do think we need to sync the lights better. We have very good technology in that regard. We need to promote infrastructure and not reduce car lanes places we don't need to do that. And I can't think of when we do need to do that. And just really keep our infrastructure up. And bus pullouts. I think that's another good one.
Good ideas. Yeah,
for sure.
That's good.
You want to experience how good Scottsdale is at light synchronization? Go to another city. Yeah. I was in one of our neighboring cities recently, and I'm like, take a lesson from Scottsdale.
Phoenix.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy.
Anyway, water and environment. Given the ongoing drought in Arizona, it's been hot. What specific policies would you implement to address water conservation and management for Scottsdale?
So Scottsdale is in a really good spot. We are cutting edge when it comes to our water department and our infrastructure, the recharge facility in North Scottsdale. That is very much cutting edge. So the whole, advocacy from the mayor's office that we're running out of water 2 years ago, or 2023 actually, during the Super Bowl and the Open, it was misplaced. I think it's absolutely not the message we should be sending because it's untrue. We're not running out of water. Of the cities in Scottsdale, we are so far ahead of the game. I mean, in Arizona, frankly, we are so far ahead of the game on water conservation, on recharge, on banking water in our aquifer, re-injecting. And we have water credits stored up. We've been very strategic at buying those in the event of future, serious loss of water, absence of water, which in the foreseeable future or in the long-term future, nobody sees that happening. And by the way, I didn't say this today earlier when I was in another conversation. Did you know that Arizona uses, according to ADWR, Department of Water Resources, Arizona uses the same amount of water as we did in 1957.
Really?
Yeah. So the water, we're running out of water thing is just, it's really just a soundbite. And I'm troubled by it because it concerns, it degrades the value of our community. I actually had two people when I was signature gathering that were looking between a city in Florida and Scottsdale, Arizona. And they bought in Florida because they said, because Scottsdale is running out of water.
Oh, really?
It's a real dangerous message to be articulating, and I'm not a fan of it, and I won't do that. So we have sophisticated water professionals in the state of Arizona, in the Valley, and in Scottsdale. Brian Biesmeyer just retired, but he's done an excellent job for 30 years.
Yep.
We're in a good spot, but notwithstanding, we should all be more careful, right? And I think we are all, very cognizant of conservation is key.
I hope the Florida person didn't wind up in that hurricane. Wow.
I don't know.
Talk about water. You got.
I know you got plenty there.
You got what you wanted.
That's not funny. Hopefully they did.
That's funny, but not funny. Yeah.
Right.
Hope they're safe. Let's talk about safety. Let's talk about public safety. Always a concern for cities. So how would you ensure that the city continues to be a safe city? Because it is. But what improvements would you make to make police and emergency services even better?
So I'm going to stick to police because I'm big proponents of both. They've always endorsed me. This time, the police association endorsed Linda because I'm sure she had done a great job working with them in the past, and did not endorse the mayor. Previously, I always had their endorsement when I was on council and in 2020 when I ran for mayor. And so it's a high priority, fire and police for me. And I've always really enjoyed their support. I met with the association not too long ago and the heads of the association. And did you know we're lower than Apache Junction for compensation for our police officers?
I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's troubling. And we're near the bottom overall compensation in the Valley. So I think that's inexcusable. I think we have to be attracting the best, retaining the best, and having a longevity program that first and foremost, so that we're not losing people to other cities that might be doing better than us or more competitive. So that's a big issue. The second thing that I would do is enforce the laws that are on our books. And I think, for example, I'm going to shift to, camping, public camping or vagrancy, right? Sleeping in Old Town or at the shopping center close to where I live, via Dave Ventura and Hayden, 3 people actually live in there at night. And so that's just not something we should allow. And any sort of especially speeding, drag racing on Scottsdale Road, noise ordinances, we just need to really be enforcing our laws strictly.
Tied to that is homelessness. So let's talk a little bit. You brought that up a little bit before. Talk a little bit about homelessness and how do we deal with that issue in Scottsdale?
So my opponent talks a lot about earmarking $10 million for a homeless shelter. I mentioned that earlier. And I think, and we have homeless hotel being operated, a portion of a hotel over on Indian Bend and Pima, or just north of Indian Bend on Pima. And so I think that that's the wrong direction. I don't think throwing money at this issue and problem, very sympathetic to individuals that are in need and crisis. I think it's a high percentage of homeless individuals that are either, drugs, alcohol, or mentally ill. So it's both a danger to themselves and a danger to others to have this persistent throughout our community. So for their benefit and for our community's benefit, we need to work. I believe it's a regional problem, warrants a regional solution. I said that earlier. I will work with the county, with our neighboring cities and the state to identify. There's a great organization out of Tucson that we saw when Matt Gress did the hearing about Scottsdale's use of state funding for the homeless hotel rooms. And it's called Gospel Mercy. I forget exactly the name. I'm going to get it wrong. I have notes here on it. But it seems highly successful in Tucson. And it's a nonprofit with collaborative services, collateral services, therapeutic, screening, drug and alcohol screening, mental health, providers. Those are things the city can't do and shouldn't be doing. We're not equipped to do that. So piecemealing it, I also want to just close on this subject on this note. So speaking of the Goldwater Institute, they actually, because this is such a kind of an abstract idea and where the money's going, all these nonprofits are really in competition to service this issue. Meanwhile, the Goldwater Institute did a deep dive into this. $180 million was spent by the city of Phoenix. And if you add on what was spent using federal funding, $250 million over 4 years. Okay, since 2021, actually not even 4 years. During that same period of time, homelessness rose 92%. What does that tell you? It's not being effectively addressed. It also tells me, build it and people will come. I mean, we're seeing that. I'm hearing about the food bank in South Scottsdale. The neighbors are like, hey, what's going on in our community, our neighborhoods, and we don't like this. There are people not from our area that are showing up here and sleeping on our sidewalks or camping out on our sidewalks in our parks. So I think it's a regional problem, warrants regional solution. And I know there's a way to do this. And I think we need to enforce the laws on the books.
Great. Here's one for you, because you mentioned earlier that you were on the Experience Scottsdale board. So how would you support Scottsdale's arts, culture, and historical preservation efforts to maintain the city's unique identity?
So hospitality, I think, is our main import and export, right? That's a huge, huge priority for me. And we cannot take our eye off that ball. I think it provides the backdrop and the framework by all the decisions we really make. So to your question, I think we need to keep competitive. When was the last great thing that we saw come across the City Hall? Any sort of major improvement? I can tell you when. It was, this isn't, new, but it was the expansion of Westworld and the addition of the TNEC, right? So it brought forward a bigger venue for all of the users, Equestrian, Craig Jackson, anyone that was having events there. So, and then before that or after that, the only one since has been the Museum of the West that actually broke ground, which was approved on my watch as well. So no great ideas are coming up, right? And you can't stand still and remain competitive or rest on your laurels, as they say. I think what we're desperately overdue for, and I've said this for a while, is a great entertainment venue that you can go see. Performing Arts Center is wonderful. It's small. It's on the smaller side. And I think there's room to really expand that, an option that's expanding access. And like, for example, the Art Basel in Miami that I went to. It's fantastic. We don't have anywhere like that here. Yeah. So having some sort of a center or a venue that we can really high end, cutting edge, doesn't have to be super high end, but even Tempe's, art venue or event venue there. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, it is.
Or
nice.
Mesa did theirs out there.
No, it's beautiful.
We really need something like that.
Yeah.
We deserve it.
We do. Actually, good point. We do deserve something.
Maybe that's the next great big idea.
I was at Mesa Arts Center the other night.
Yeah, I've been there a couple times. I like it there. I love it there.
Yeah, we need something like that. There's no reason why we don't have that.
Yeah.
So final question, leadership. Okay. How do you plan to work with the city council and the staff to achieve the goals that you want to achieve?
That's a great question. I brought this up earlier today too. I've met with every potential incoming candidate post-primary and had coffee or a meal with them. I've met with every council member except for Councilwoman Whitehead, and I'd love to do that. But, and so I'm very interested in that. As a lawyer, even though I have done a lot of scorched earth litigation, you know what I've learned? The quickest way to the best result is mediation and finding a solution that people agree on, right? And no one's happy, but they would be a lot less happy had they gone and had discourse and then one person wins and one person loses. So that's how I would handle that. And I did when I was on the council. That was a big thing for me. There was a project that came through where a neighboring, property owner, very high profile business owner, was opposing it. And there was this faction and that faction on either side of it. And I literally brought them all together at different times with different groups, and put them in a conference room. And we really hashed it out. And we were able to make huge strides to where, hey, not everyone was 100% happy, but everyone left feeling heard and represented and like they got something more than they had before. So
how was your experience working with the city staff when you were on council? Did you find it to be a good experience?
Great.
They were good, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I mean, I thought it was seamless.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, they were good. And it's a whole new crew now. I think, I'm looking forward to getting to know them, and everything was great when I was there, and I think it'll be easy.
Great. Lisa, final thoughts as we wrap up today? Is there something that you wanted to talk about that we didn't ask you, or just kind of final thoughts on where you are at this point as election day nears?
And I'm excited for that. So I want to add on the fiscal responsibility side, I think I've identified there's a big problem with spending. We don't have a revenue problem. This is really the 490 thing. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. And so that is immediately, once elected, I would look to restore the Citizens Budget Commission. That was a very useful tool when I was on council. Jim Lane, who's endorsed me, he and I really led the charge on impaneling or adopting the Citizens Budget Commission. Direct appointments from each council member and the mayor. And they took, a lot of time to do deep dives into departmental spending and budgeting, which council members and the mayor really are prohibited from doing pursuant to the charter. You can't really get in, with the departments and start finagling what's going on. That's prohibited. So, and they weren't doing that by proxy, but that was their only charge. And so staff, the charter officers, would bring them the information and they would drill down and study the budgets. We cut a lot of fat. We found efficiencies as a result. And we brought, I think the budget was like nearly $50 million, brought it down to 219, like shaved a ton of that off without eliminating services, cutting back. Citizens didn't feel anything in the process. That's a big, big issue for me to do right away to kind of solve this, right the course on the fiscal side. We won't have to raise taxes. We will fund the parks. We will protect the preserve. We will fund public safety, police, and fire. So, it's a big issue for me.
Kevin, a great conversation again.
Absolutely.
Today, huh?
Yeah. Thanks again for carving out a little bit of time for us.
Thank you.
Our audience.
It's been a pleasure. Great to see you both.
Thanks for running. As we say, I appreciate the services it takes to run these days for any kind of public office. So
I should have said earlier, it's truly a calling. When people ask me, why I'm doing this, it is really a calling. Being on council was the best professional experience of my career. At the time, my daughter was 5 and I was running a law practice full time. So doing a second term was not wise and it was the right decision. But I'm looking forward to doing this again now that I've got a lot more availability.
Right.
Well, we sure appreciate your thoughts about your campaign, your vision for the city's future. Thank you for all of that. And thanks for listening to all of you out there. Next week's election ballots are going to be showing up in the mail. This is a reminder, vote. We need everybody to vote. It's going to be a long ballot this year. Vote all the way down to the bottom. Don't stay on the sidelines. And please stay with us for the future. Also, we're going to be back again with more episodes of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.
Thank you very much.